I actually wasn't going to do a game of the year list. It's just not really something that fits in with the normal stuff I do on this channel. But then I actually started to think about it on my own, just kind of recreationally. Or what were the best or my favorite games of the year? And I always had that conversation with myself, which is just my opinion. A game of the year list is simply subjective. Review scores don't matter. And as I started to process that, I started to realize that my game of the year list was a little bit different than I could have ever expected it to be at the beginning of 2018, and certainly nearing the end of 2019. I know now that game of the year lists are more interesting when you actually put everything aside. So we are going to do a game of the year list. These are going to be my favorite, the games that I believe are some of the best games of the year, but more importantly, the games I believe people should be playing, the games I believe that people should absolutely spend their time on. And some of them are probably not going to be what you expect, one in particular, and I'm going to have to really clarify why with this game. But I think it is important to tell you now that as we go through this, I'm not taking review scores into account. I'm not taking how people feel as a whole into account, and I'm certainly not taking industry standards into account when I make this list and as I go through this. So to get started, I think it's best to look at maybe the most obvious game of the year contender, and I think most of you are going to know what this one is, and that's God of War. God of War was one of the more interesting games of the year for me, not necessarily because I liked God of War, not necessarily because I was super hyped for it. I actually wasn't. I didn't like the idea of God of War becoming something that it never really had been. I didn't dislike the idea, it just wasn't singing to me, I guess, if you will, before it released. I thought that God of War was meant to be this fast-paced action game, and story was there, and it was fine, and it was serviceable, but that was secondary to what the game really was. So when God of War released, and I realized that what I had gotten myself into was a story-based adventure where action is secondary, I was certainly confused, but by the end of it, I mean, there's not much reason to spend a lot of time on this game. As you all know, God of War is damn near perfect. It is everything that Sony stands for with its exclusives. It is polished, it is incredibly high quality, it is single player focused, and it's in every single way something that you don't see in gaming anymore. It's pseudo open world, but it's microtransaction free and relatively DLC free, and it is a standalone, contained, single-player journey unlike anything you've ever played. It's also maybe the most beautiful video game ever created, and I don't mean that in an emotional sense. I mean literally the most aesthetically pleasing video game, the highest fidelity video game I have ever laid my eyes on. So I'm not going to continue to talk about God of War. Just go play God of War. The next game on this list is also something that's not going to surprise some people, but for others it will be, because it is probably in my top 2 games of this year. And I know it's early to be saying this, but I'm already so confident in it that I'm okay saying it, and that's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, I don't want to talk too much about Smash because I have the longest video I've ever made coming up soon about Smash, but what I will say is that I spent most of my life being the most casual Smash player you could imagine. I did play every single game this franchise has ever released, and I enjoyed them, and I would play them with friends, but I never cared too much about Smash. I was never a competitive player. I was never concerned about being the best. It was just there. Hell, even as a spectator sport, I was never enamored with Smash. I enjoyed it time and time again, but it was all for 10 minutes and I get bored and turn it off. Smash Ultimate somehow does away with all of that. Maybe it's because I've grown, or maybe it's because the game has, but it is the most, to me, accessible Smash game I have ever placed my hands on since the Nintendo 64. It is easy to hop into. It has something for literally everybody, and it seems like the penultimate version of what Smash is meant to be. Now, the game does have its problems, and actually one of them is a relatively big problem, and I'll talk about that at a later date. But what I will say is, if you have a Switch, and you have anybody that you play that Switch with, and you are not buying Super Smash Bros. Ultimate this year, you are doing yourself and that person and those people a disservice. Buy Smash Ultimate. I'll talk about the problems with it and everything great with it very, very soon. But now is not the time for that. It is time, however, to move on to game number 3, which may surprise some people and it may not, but it's SpiderMan. When you sit down and play SpiderMan, once it's out, once it's been patched a little bit because it's had its problems when it first launched with a few bugs and glitches, but what it is today and I said this in a recent video, is maybe the single most entrancing game of the year. It may not be the best game, and I actually don't believe it is. I don't believe it's actually anywhere near close to the best game of the year. But it is the easiest to play, and that sounds weird, but the feeling of playing Spider-Man PS4 is almost relaxing. It's trance-like. You can sit in that game and do literally nothing, accomplish absolutely nothing, and enjoy yourself. And there's very few games like that, especially $60 AAA budget games. I mean, it has all the content. It has a relatively good story. It has every villain you could want. It sets itself up for a sequel and an expanded world. It's got great mission structure. The side quests and side activities are mostly fun, but it's really just existing in this world. As someone who lives in Manhattan, it's not necessarily true to life, but it's maybe the most enjoyable way to experience gaming for new players and people just coming into it. It doesn't pressure you into anything. It's not particularly difficult. It's just enjoyable. It's just relaxing. And I mean, if you want to know more about Spider-Man PS4, I have a video on it on this channel called What Does Spider-Man Become? You can check that out, and I go into much greater detail there. But what I will say is, if you're new to gaming, if you're interested in gaming, if you have trouble getting into games, if you just want something that you can turn your brain off and play, that's Spider-Man PS4, and it is the best game this year to do that with. Now we're going to get to two weirder ones, and one I have to justify, kind of, but not really, and another that makes sense to me but doesn't make sense to a lot of people. The game that's not going to make sense to a lot of people is Donut County. Now, I'd imagine most of you watching this probably haven't even heard of Donut County, or maybe you have. I actually played Donut County on a phone. I was on a cruise with my fiance, and it takes her a very long time to get ready, and I downloaded a game that looked interesting to me, and I had seen it on the PSN store, and it's just a small mobile game. It takes probably 5 hours to complete, maybe less, maybe 2 or 3, maybe I'm exaggerating in my head. It's very simple, it's very slick, but it is what I think mobile games should be if you're going to play a mobile game, which I don't particularly enjoy on a regular basis. Donut County is something that you pick up and you play for 2 minutes and you put down, and you don't remember where those 2 minutes went. It's a lot like Spider-Man. You're using holes to collect things. There's no challenge. It's not difficult. There are small puzzles, but essentially you're using your finger to create bigger and bigger holes and swallow up an entire level. You're not being attacked except for one boss or two. You're not being rushed. It's just serene. And the best thing about Donut County is its soundtrack, which I think people underestimate when it comes to a lot of games. Donut County's soundtrack is the best soundtrack of any game I personally have ever played. I think the only game that comes close to me is Persona 5, and that's probably it. Donut County is an audio treat. It is so well scored that it makes playing the game, which could be such a simple and borderline boring experience, something so much more. So if you have a phone, I think Donut County is $4. It may be even less. It may be 1 or 2. It's on PSN for $10. Honestly, if you have surround sound speakers or anything like that, that's where I would pick this game up. It's got trophy support. This is a game I can't do anything but recommend. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's worth a few hours, and it's certainly worth the $10 or $4 that you pay for it. And that's going to bring me to my personal actual game of the year. And that one is probably not going to be a surprise to anyone. But it is going to, based on the reaction I've seen, be one that's a little bit controversial, even if it's one that so many other people are picking. I know Red Dead Redemption 2 has its problems. I know that the pace can be plodding. I know that the animations can be cumbersome. I know that the way it controls is not necessarily precise or tight. I know that the game asks a lot of you in terms of patience. But at the end of the day, Red Dead Redemption 2 is unlike anything else on the market. It is an open world game that, in a sea of open world games, does things its own way and in ways that are brand new. It is the closest thing to perfect I think I have seen a game come this year, and it's also the most polarizing game that I would call near perfect that I've ever seen. It is for certain types of gamers. If you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of time to game and you're quick in, quick out, Red Dead's going to be next to impossible for you to play. I mean, it simply is. It's not quite like GTA where you hop in a car and you go to your mission. You're going to spend I would imagine, added up, hours on your horse just riding across this game world. You're going to spend a lot of time having conversations that seem slow and seem like they aren't going anywhere. You're going to spend a lot of time throwing animals over your shoulders. But at the end of all of that, what is there is one of the best stories I have played this year. Some of the best voice acting, some of the best characters, and to me, the most grounded open world experience that I have ever played. And if that's what you're looking for, grounded, realistic, I don't want to say realistic, it's still Red Dead Redemption. You're still a cowboy running around shooting people on the back of your horse. But if you're looking for something that is going to challenge you to really immerse yourself in that world, if you're looking for something that's going to challenge you to become a part of it, to really give yourself to it, Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the greatest games of all time in that aspect. I don't believe it's one of the greatest games ever made, but I do believe that, to me, it is the best game this year, and it's really not a close contest. Maybe if I had to pick, the closest second would be God of War, which is just as deserving. But that's for me. I do want to say one honorable mention really quickly, and it's kind of strange because it didn't come out this year, but if you haven't played Persona 5 by now, you should. Cameraman is laughing right now, but I know I plug this game maybe a bit too much, and I talk about this game maybe a bit too much, but I don't think there's a game with the longevity of Persona 5. I don't think there's a game as good as Persona 5 this entire generation. And I mean that. And that's my opinion. I understand that. But I genuinely believe that Persona 5 is the best game I've played this generation. And I know it's 2018 and it's not Persona 5 year, but if you have not played that game, if you are looking for something that will last you hundreds of hours, if you are looking for something that just one playthrough will last you 100 plus, if you're looking for one of the best RPGs I think has ever been made, that's Persona 5. I know it's cheating. It's not 2018 anymore. It's not 2017 anymore. It's not 2016. This is not Persona year. But the reason I'm saying it is because Dancing in Starlight is out, and that's a Persona related game, and I just thought it pertinent to get that back out there. Well, guys, that is it for my Game of the Year list. And now I think more so than any other video this entire year, it's your turn, the start of a dialogue. What are your favorite games of the year? What is your favorite game of the year? What is the game you can't put down? And what is your biggest disappointment this year? And I'm going to make a video about that very thing too. What are the games that disappointed you the most? What are the games that surprised you? What are the games you enjoyed? What did you like about gaming in 2018? And what are you excited about 2019? Let me know the answers to any of those questions down in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're not yet a member of this team, press subscribe. I put out gaming analysis, examinations, and definitely not lists twice, sometimes 3 times a week. So hit subscribe so you do not miss any of those. This week, guys, I will be coming with the longest video I have ever made. It should come 2 days after this one goes live. So there's that. There will also be a couple more videos this week as the year winds down. Won't be as long as the video that's coming, but I do hope you guys enjoyed that. And until then, I'm out.